Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or the Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about my week number 9 running back start or sit decisions for fantasy football in 2021. Inside today's video, we're going to be going in depth into every single matchup from Thursday Night Football all the way until Monday Night Football, and I'll be telling you guys whether I believe you should start or sit the running backs in every single matchup. But before we can get on into things, I would like to ask, if you are new to the channel and you do end up enjoying today's video, to please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. Not only is it free, I put out content every single day to help you guys win your 2021 Fantasy Football Championship. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure to hit that like button down below to help boost this video up the algorithm so that more beautiful people like yourself can see today's video. I'd also like to ask, if you guys are on Twitter and would like to follow me on there, to please do so at NotoriousFNTSY. So without further ado, let's get into my week number 9 running back start or sit decisions. We begin with Thursday Night Football, the New York Jumbo Jets at the Indianapolis Colts. In this game for the Colts, you're going to be firing up Jonathan Taylor. You want to play Jonathan Taylor in every single game. It seems as though Frank Reich and the team has really committed fully to Jonathan Taylor at this point in the season. Earlier on, we were seeing a decent amount of usage for Nyheim Hines on third down scenarios. We were seeing him get a decent amount of targets game in and game out, but it seems as though at this point in the season, they have pretty much phased out Nyheim Hines, and it has been a 3-down role for Jonathan Taylor. I expect Jonathan Taylor to have a great game, an excellent week this week up against the Jumbo Jets. The Jets defense played pretty solid up against the Cincinnati Bengals. We did see Joe Mixon have a pretty solid showing, so I expect Jonathan Taylor to have a great game here up against the Jets on Thursday Night Football. For the Jets, Michael Carter will be listed as a start, and I think a lot of people are going to get a little bit nervous about starting Michael Carter in this game. Michael Carter, at this point in the season, is the clear #1 running back for the Jumbo Jets. Throughout the offseason, I was very high on Michael Carter. I thought it would only take a couple of weeks until Michael Carter took the throne as the lead running back for the team, but obviously it took a little bit longer than that over the last 2 weeks. He has had a 70% snap share on the team at the running back position. Out of all the running backs, he's been on the field 70% of the time in the last 2 weeks, which tells me that he is the clear #1 running back. He exploded up against the Cincinnati Bengals last week and had an amazing game. I understand a lot of people may be nervous because, hey, the Indianapolis Colts have a very, very solid run defense, and I understand that, but Michael Carter's value isn't just in the rushing game. He's going to be seeing some pass catching opportunities as well. In this game up against the Indianapolis Colts, I do believe that the Jets are going to lose the game, but I do believe that the key for the Jets, why they were so successful up against the Cincinnati Bengals, was because they were running the ball at a decent pace. So I do believe they'll be running the ball a decent amount here up against the Indianapolis Colts, even if they aren't leading the game. For the Indianapolis Colts, the other running back, Nyheim Hines, is going to be listed as a sit for me. Again, it really does seem as though Jonathan Taylor has a complete and utter stranglehold over this offense. Then for the Jets, it seems as though, like I said, Michael Carter has that stranglehold over the offense, so I do not really want anything to do with Ty Johnson in this matchup. It would be very interesting to see what happens for the Jets if they win this game, because if they beat the Colts on Thursday Night Football after having this amazing win up against the Bengals on Sunday, what happens now at the quarterback position? Is Mike White going to be the guy going forward, or are they going to pivot back to Zach Wilson when he's 100% healthy, even if Mike White is on this run? That is something that is going to be very interesting to see, obviously, if they end up winning this game. Next up, we move to the Sunday slate with the Atlanta Falcons at the New Orleans Saints. It appears that Taysom Hill is going to be healthy and good to go in this game up against the Atlanta Falcons, which has me severely worried about Alvin Kamara, running back of the New Orleans Saints. We saw it last season. When Taysom Hill is in the game, it is very worrisome for Alvin Kamara. We've seen this year with Jameis under center, they weren't really dumping the ball off to Alvin Kamara, which was quite worrisome for fantasy football, because so much of Alvin Kamara's value and why people drafted him so highly in fantasy football this year and in prior years with Drew Brees is because Alvin Kamara is such a big target on the team to get so much of his value from the pass catching opportunities. This year, that has not been as much of the case. Alvin Kamara has still been a very solid fantasy running back, but he hasn't been seeing the receptions. The receptions are not going to magically fucking appear out of thin air with Taysom Hill under center, and we have seen Alvin Kamara struggle in his career when Taysom Hill has started. So again, does that mean that you got to sit Alvin Kamara? Of course not. He's still one of the more talented running backs in the NFL. He is still in a very solid situation to succeed, but I am very worried about Taysom Hill being under center, taking away a lot of rushing opportunities from Alvin Kamara. For For the Atlanta Falcons, you're going to play Cordero Patterson every single fucking week. This guy has the upside to be a top 5 running back. They are going to be without Calvin Ridley. I personally hope that Calvin Ridley is okay, and that means that we're going to be seeing more pass catching opportunities, in my opinion, for Cordero Patterson. Last week, I started to think, hey, maybe Russell Gage is going to be seeing some work. Russell Gage puts up a goose egg for terms of fantasy football, meaning he put up a fat fucking 0 in your lineup. I expect Cordero Patterson to see a bunch of usage in this matchup up against the Saints defense that some weeks seems really good, other weeks not so much, right? They do have those games where they look like a lockdown defense, then they have other games where they get pounded in by like Mono Man Sam and the Carolina Panthers, so it's very interesting to see. I would go ahead and play Cordero Patterson though this week. When we move down to the sit category in this game, I'm going to be sitting down Mike Davis. I just feel as though you can't start Mike Davis at this point in the season. In the last couple of games, Cordero Patterson is just seeing so much more work than him. He's seeing more receptions, and that's what's super valuable in fantasy football. Mike Davis is still a running back that is talented, but he's just not given the correct opportunity. Over the last couple of games, Cordero Patterson has been out-snapping him. Last week in that matchup for the Atlanta Falcons against the Carolina Panthers, Mike Davis did end up out-snapping him, but Cordero Patterson ended up scoring more fantasy points. So even if Mike Davis was to out-snap Cordero Patterson by maybe 5, 6, 7 snaps in the game, it's probably not going to matter because he's not going to be seeing those high-value touches. I don't really trust Mike Davis, and I don't think you should either. Unless something was to happen to Cordero Patterson, obviously knock on wood, we don't root for injuries, then Mike Davis is basically irrelevant in terms of fantasy football. For the Saints, they bring in the big trust, Mark Ingram from the Houston Texans. Mark Ingram actually looked pretty solid last week in that game for the New Orleans Saints, but at the end of the day, with Alvin Kamara there, I just don't really know how much you can trust Mark Ingram unless this is a complete and utter blowout where the New Orleans Saints blow the back out of the Atlanta Falcons. That I don't think we'll be seeing too much Mark Ingram in this matchup. Next up, we move to the Broncos at the Dallas Cowboys. For the Cowboys, you're obviously going to be playing Ezekiel Elliott. It seems as though Mr. Dakota Prescott should be good to go to play in this game. The team ended up winning, eating a W Jameis Winston style up against the Minnesota Vikings in that primetime game on Monday Night Football with Cooper Rush under center, which to me was a little bit crazy, but not that surprising at all when you consider Mr. Kirk Cousins absolutely sucks donkey cock on Monday Night Football, Sunday Night Football, Thursday Night Football. Anytime it's a primetime game, Kirk Cousins crumbles like a goddamn cookie, so you shouldn't have been surprised, really, in reality, that the Dallas Cowboys won that game. Ezekiel Elliott has been a solid running back game in and game out, going up against a depleted Denver Broncos defense. I just don't see how they can stop the Dallas Cowboys offense at all, even if Cooper Rush was to have been the quarterback in this game. Again, I do believe it will be Dak Prescott, so you shouldn't really worry about that, but even with Cooper Rush, they would probably be able to beat the Broncos, so I like Zeke in this matchup. For the Broncos, every single week, it's completely up in the air which running back is going to outscore the other one, Melvin Gordon versus Javonte Williams, and every single week, I tell you to start both of them because they see such an even snap share in this offense. So many people were so pumped for the trade deadline yesterday, thinking, holy shit, Melvin Gordon is going to get shipped out of town. Then Melvin Gordon has the potential on his new team to be a top 12 running back, and Javonte Williams will now be the lead back of the Denver Broncos, giving him that upside to be a top 12 running back. But in reality, nothing ends up happening at the trade deadline. All of the trades that everyone was expecting didn't end up going through. Odell is still on the Cleveland Browns, Melvin Gordon is still on the Broncos, and no one knows what's happening with Deshaun Watson. So the whole situation, the whole fun of the trade deadline was basically murdered, O.J. Simpson style, by the fact that nothing happened. Melvin Gordon is still on the Broncos, thus making this a very difficult decision game in and game out. I do believe that Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams could have relatively solid showings in this game, but they are nowhere near close to being ranked inside the top 12. They are guys that are in like the 24 to 18 range that have upside, but that upside is capped by the fact that, hey, Melvin Gordon might be leading the rusher the whole fucking game, and then out of nowhere, Javonte Williams scores a touchdown, he vultures them, and they are just pissed off. So at the end of the day, you're going to start both of them, but you're not ultimately excited to play either of them in this matchup up against the Dallas Cowboys. Next up, we got the New England Patriots at the Carolina Panthers. Before we get on into breaking down this game, I would like to ask if you have ended up enjoying thus far, to please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below if you are new, and whether you are new or not, please make sure to leave a like on today's video. It would help me out a ton. So Damien Harris for the Patriots is a must-start running back at this point in the season. He's the clear #1 running back on the team. He's never really going to be seeing 8, 9, 10 targets or something fucking crazy in a game, but he is somewhat involved in the receiving game, which was not the case throughout last season. He is a running back that is pretty solid on a pretty solid New England Patriots team. I would expect them to keep it close up against the Carolina Panthers and potentially win this game outright. So I do expect Damien Harris to have a very solid showing in this game. For the Panthers, it appears that Christian McCaffrey is going to be back. Now again, if Christian McCaffrey does not end up playing, which is entirely possible because for the last bunch of weeks before they put Christian McCaffrey on the IR, everyone's talking about, oh hey, Christian McCaffrey practiced like this, he practiced a couple of days, he's going to be back, and then he's nowhere to be fucking seen on Sunday. So if he doesn't end up playing, that wouldn't surprise me, then you're going to be playing Chuba Hubbard. Now Chuba Hubbard, game in and game out, hasn't really lived up to the expectations of a guy like Christian McCaffrey, which is impossible because those are some huge shoes to fill. Last year, Mike Davis did it relatively well for Christian McCaffrey, but he wasn't able to become Christian McCaffrey, obviously, because there are only so many running backs in the NFL that could be as good as Christian McCaffrey, and you want to know who one of those running backs is? Christian McCaffrey himself, going up against the New England Patriots. If he plays, you got to play him. If he doesn't play, then you got to play Chuba Hubbard. That's kind of my thought process on this. I believe, though, if Christian McCaffrey does end up playing, it seems like Christian McCaffrey was one of the reasons why Sam Darnold was playing so well at the beginning of the year. So maybe the Carolina Panthers look a lot better with Christian McCaffrey back there as the running back for the Patriots. They got Brandon Bolden, they got Ramondre Stevenson. None of those guys are very relevant for fantasy football. If Ramondre Stevenson does not end up playing, he's a healthy scratch, then Brandon Bolden does have some fantasy value in a half PPR or a full PPR league because he will be seeing some targets in this game. But overall, I'm definitely just looking to go with the starting running backs here, Damien Harris and Christian McCaffrey if he does end up playing. Next up, we got the Minnesota Vikings at the Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens backfield is a complete and utter fucking shit show. They got Devontae Freeman, they got Tyson Williams, they got Le'Veon Bell. They just have so many fucking running backs at this point that do get usage in the game that things do get confusing. But at the end of the day, it does appear that Devontae Freeman is the lead back of the Baltimore Ravens. That may sound crazy in 2021 that Devontae Freeman is the lead back on any team, but it is the case in Baltimore for the Ravens. So I am willing to start him, but understand there is huge risk when playing any of these Ravens running backs because a lot of the time, Lamar Jackson's just going to be the guy that gets the rushing touchdown, that gets a lot of the rushing yards, and a lot of the time, also, if that does not end up happening, and maybe Lamar doesn't rush for like 80 plus yards, then it's just all of them attacking. You will see Tyson Williams, you will see Le'Veon Bell. It is definitely dicey to start Devontae Freeman, but my feelings at this point in the season is that Devontae Freeman is the guy, and the Minnesota Vikings is a pretty juicy matchup for the running back, so I'm willing to play Devontae Freeman. Just understand that there are definitely some risks with playing him. For the Minnesota Vikings, you're going to play Dalvin Cook every single fucking time he is healthy because he's one of the only running backs in fantasy football that I really do believe any given game, any given matchup could be the #1 overall running back in fantasy football. He's not a guy that's going to get 8, 9, 10 targets game in and game out, but he makes up with that with a very nice and very effective rushing game. Going up against the Baltimore Ravens isn't an impossible matchup, so I do expect Dalvin Cook to finish somewhere inside the top 5. When Dalvin Cook does play, this is not one of those scenarios where, hey, Alexander Mattison, you can get a decent amount of usage even when Dalvin Cook is in the game. That's just not the case at all. When Dalvin Cook is in, he is the workhorse running back for the team, and you have to start him in fantasy football. The other Ravens running backs, they are sits. Again, it definitely is all up in the air. Would I be surprised at all if Tyson Williams was somehow the #1 running back on the Baltimore Ravens this week? Not at all. That would not fucking surprise me at all because of how confusing this has been all season. But at the end of the day, like I've been saying, like I've been reiterating, it does really feel as though Devontae Freeman is that guy. Next up, we move to the Cleveland Browns at the Cincinnati Bengals. Trouble in paradise for the Cleveland Browns as Odell Beckham Jr. doesn't show up to practice today. Wah, wah, wah. I cannot stand Odell Beckham Jr. This fucking baby back bitch doesn't want to play with the Browns. I want to get traded. Fucking catch the football when it's thrown to you, pal. All right? Now, I understand that I am kind of messing around a little bit when I say this because Baker Mayfield hasn't been the most accurate when throwing the ball to Odell Beckham Jr., but at the end of the day, let's just hope that maybe all these things are kind of resolved because Odell Beckham Jr., if he was given the chance, could be pretty solid for fantasy football. but he's on a run-heavy team, so that's probably never going to work. Kevin Stefanski's goal is to have them run the ball gently down the stream and have 9-inch Nicholas Chubb pound that defense into submission, Johnny Sin style, so I expect Nick Chubb to have a very strong showing in this game up against the Cincinnati Bengals, a bounce-back game because he was a complete and utter unmitigated disaster up against the Pittsburgh Steelers last week. We did see D'Ernest Johnson get some work, but this does not appear to be a situation where Nick Chubb is Nick Chubb in this scenario, and D'Ernest Johnson is Kareem Hunt. It really does seem like a majority of the load is going to go to 9-inch Nicholas Chubb. For the Cincinnati Bengals, you're going to be firing up Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon is an every week start, just as is Mr. Nick Chubb. Joe Mixon looked pretty solid up against the Jumbo Jets. Samaje Perine role is still there. Samaje Perine may end up vulturing a touchdown in this game, but a lot of running backs in the NFL deal with the fact that another running back behind them could end up vulturing a touchdown. So I do expect Samaje Perine to not be very fantasy relevant in this game up against the Cleveland Browns. We have seen the Browns get ran on this season, so I do believe that Joe Mixon should be able to have a very solid showing. Next up, we got the Buffalo Bills at the Jacksonville Jaguars. My impression right now is that James Robinson is not going to play up against the Buffalo Bills. If that is wrong, which is entirely possible because this video is being recorded on Wednesday and they play on Sunday, and maybe James Robinson's good to go on Sunday. If James Robinson does play, then you're not starting Carlos Hyde and you're going to play James Robinson. The Buffalo Bills defense is pretty solid up against the run, so this is far from an ideal matchup, but we did see Carlos Hyde have some success last week after James Robinson went down in the first quarter up against the Seattle Seahawks, so I think that Urban Meyer does definitely have just a spot in his heart for Carlos Hyde. He just has to. He just does, and he's going to be given the rock to Carlos Hyde if Robinson doesn't play, so you got to play Carlos Hyde in that case, even in the tough matchup up against the Bills. Doesn't make him like a top 12 running back, but it does make him a reliable spot start in this situation. For the Buffalo Bills, I understand that Zach Moss was a huge disappointment last week up against the Miami Dolphins. I personally expected Zach Moss to run an absolute fucking train on the Dolphins defense. The Dolphins defense sucks complete and utter donkey dick up against the run. They have no idea how to stop the run, but up against the Bills at the beginning of the game in the first half, the Dolphins defense looked like really, really good. They looked like the Miami Dolphins defense of last season, but then in the second half, the defense fucking got caved in. Got absolutely battered by the Bills offense. I do expect Zach Moss to have a bounce back game this week up against the Jacksonville Jaguars, as he is the lead running back for the Buffalo Bills. The other Buffalo Bills running back, Devin Singletary, there's no way you're starting him. To me, it is just so clear that Zach Moss is the lead back that I don't really want anything to do with Devin Singletary. I hope you guys do enjoy the new haircut I got. I know it makes my forehead look like I'm one of the Manning brothers, but at the end of the day, it is what it is. So the Texans at my Miami Dolphins in this game. I will be playing Myles Gaskin, but that's only because this game is up against the Houston Texans, and Myles Gaskin is a very risky start. It's like going in there raw, because Myles Gaskin, there's the upside that he runs a train up against the Texans, that they actually give him the correct amount of workload. And then there's obviously the other chance, the other perspective on the game where the Dolphins, they actually play like shit. They somehow lose this game to the Texans. I throw myself out the window. Now, the window in my room is like 1 foot. Like, if I jump out the window, I'll be perfectly fine. But my point still stands. As a Dolphins fan, I will be sick to my fucking stomach if we lose to the Houston Texans. Please give Myles Gaskin the ball. Now, again, as someone who watches all of the Dolphins games, I know that we should be giving him the football. But will we give him the football in this game? Probably not, because the Dolphins fucking head coach, the fucking offensive coordinators, they all have a fucking hole in the back of their head. They're a bunch of goddamn idiots, and they need to run the ball with Myles Gaskin. I hope they do it in this game. I hope we are beating the Texans by so much that they will be able to commit to the run, and Myles Gaskin has a good game. He's definitely risky, but you have to start some people that are like running backs 25 in the rankings. So there goes Myles Gaskin there. David Johnson will be listed as a start as well. The Dolphins' run defense is fucking atrocious. But Nick, the Bills weren't able to run on them. What makes you think that David Johnson will be able to run on them? Well, I'm not 100% sold in on the fact that this is going to happen. But again, he's one of those bottom of the barrel starts where the upside is there because he is the clear lead running back on the Houston Texans. The question is, will they be able to keep up with the Miami Dolphins in this game? and maybe they don't even need to keep up because this game is like 7-7 at the end of half because both of these teams just completely suck at playing the game of football. Phillip Lindsay will be a sit for me. It just does really seem like David Johnson is the clear lead back on the team without Mr. Maki Mock, Mr. Big Trust Ingram for the Houston Texans. Next up, we got the Las Vegas Raiders at the New York Giants, the New York Football Giants. Josh Jacobs, it appears he's going to play. People have asked me a couple of questions about Josh Jacobs I saw in the comment section, but I was going to record this video anyway, so I was like, you know what? They'll probably watch this video. It's okay if I don't answer. If you guys have any questions, please leave them down below in the comments. I try to answer as many as possible. I believe that Josh Jacobs is going to play based upon what I have seen. If Josh Jacobs does not end up playing, then Kenyon Drake instantly elevates himself into a starting role for fantasy football. The Giants and the Chiefs played a very close game. Very close game, and a lot of the reason why the Chiefs were able to move the ball was by running the football on the Giants with Darrell Williams as well as with Frank Gore's great-grandson. So I do believe that the Raiders will be able to run in this game, so if Jacobs plays, you got to play him. If Josh Jacobs does play, then you're not playing Drake, but if Josh Jacobs is out and not able to go in this game, then you're definitely going to be looking to slide in Kenyon Drake. For the Giants, Saquon Barkley, still banged up. There was talks about COVID with him. Can he play on Sunday? I don't think they've ruled him out just yet. Doesn't seem very likely. So you get another week of Devontae Booker going up against the Las Vegas Raiders. The Giants were pretty successful at running the ball in that game up against the Kansas City Chiefs. Is it because they were going up against the Chiefs? Probably right, because the Chiefs defense is so bad, but the Giants are just so banged up. They keep dealing with so many injuries that I do believe that Devontae Booker will have a very strong stranglehold over the backfield in this game, and we'll be seeing tons of work. Next up, we got a game between the LA Chargers at the Philadelphia Eagles. In this one, you're going to be starting Austin Eckler. A lot of people were a bit nervous last week. They were thinking, oh man, Austin Eckler, he looks like he's not going to play. Maybe he's banged up. Should I still start him? And the only injury I assume that Austin Eckler has is a groin injury from absolutely butt-fucking your opponent every single time you throw this guy in your lineup. Austin Eckler is so good. He's so good. He's exactly what I thought he was going to be last year. I was a year early because he got hurt. I was all in favor of drafting him this year. I love Austin Eckler. He's one of my favorite running backs in the NFL. He doesn't need to be in there 80-90% of the time. He just needs to go ahead and catch some balls, and he's going to have an excellent day, game in and game out for fantasy football. The LA Chargers offense is menu freak with Mr. Justin Herbert, the pervert, under center. I love Austin Eckler in this game. I love him in every single game. You got to fire him up. Now, the Philadelphia Eagles, we may get into a just rant right here because I need to talk about the Philadelphia Eagles. Nick Sirianni, it took this Italian, this gabagool motherfucker 8 weeks to figure out that, hey, maybe if we run the football, maybe that works. How shocking, right? If you just run the ball, then maybe the defense will be surprised when you pass the ball. Maybe they won't just be 100% knowing that you're going to pass the ball because your dumbass just throws every single play. Now, they figured it out. So if you had Miles Sanders, you were probably watching that game, and you probably threw the fucking remote at the TV because you're like, what? Why did they finally give the ball to the running backs when it's Boston Scott and when it's Kenneth Gainwell, when it's Jordan Howard? It doesn't make any sense. And speaking of Kenneth Gainwell, what the fuck happened to Kenneth Gainwell? Kenneth Gainwell was the clear #1 running back in this scenario. He can do both. He can run in between the tackles. He can catch passes. And then magically, it's Boston Scott and Jordan Howard season for the Philadelphia Eagles. I don't understand it at all. I do not get it. But even with me not understanding it, I'm playing Boston Scott this week. He appeared to be the lead back for the Philadelphia Eagles. They use a committee system. But Kenneth Gainwell barely even fucking graced the field when the real game happening. When it was in garbage time, after the Philadelphia Eagles bent over and relentlessly butt-fucked the Detroit Lions without the use of any lube, then after that, right after the game was basically over, then Kenneth Gainwell, hey Kenny, come on into the game. You can run the ball a little bit. So you weren't a complete disgrace for fantasy football. You had like 4 points. What the hell is that? Everyone and their mother, including myself, expected a big game out of Kenny Gainwell going up against the Detroit Lions, but it didn't happen. It did not happen at all. And while I wouldn't be surprised at all if Nick Sirianni goes back and watches the tape, he's like, oh, where was Kenneth Gainwell? I thought I was supposed to be using him. And then magically, Kenneth Gainwell's the #1 running back on the week. That wouldn't surprise me. But based upon what we saw last week up against the Lions, you have to play Boston Scott, and you have to be one crazy motherfucker to want to start Jordan Howard, in my opinion. I just don't see him scoring 2 touchdowns again this week up against the LA Chargers, but the Chargers defense might be prone to get ran on a little bit, so I think Boston Scott will get spicy in this one. I love him in this game up against the LA Chargers. Next up, we got the Green Bay Packers at the Kansas City Chiefs without Mr. Aaron Rodgers, without Mr. Discount Double Check, and that means we're going to be seeing Jordan Love me. Jordan Love. Love me tender, love me sweet. Jordan Love. How exciting. The future of the Green Bay Packers, because we all know that Aaron Rodgers is going to hit them with the fat Irish goodbye after they lose in the NFC Championship game. Again, Aaron Jones, in the case of Jordan Love being the starting quarterback of the team, I'm still fine playing Aaron Jones. I still believe that he has tons of value because he's still a very talented running back, and I believe that Jordan Love, since he's a rookie quarterback, he'll probably just be like, you know what, this Aaron Jones guy, he can catch the ball. Let me just dump it off to him a bunch of times. Because it's safe, and typically rookie quarterbacks like to keep it safe. So I expect Aaron Jones. I just also expect the fact that they want to make sure that Jordan Love doesn't fuck everything up, so they're going to try to run the ball a lot, thus really helping out Mr. Aaron Jones. For the Chiefs, we got Darrell Williams, no Clyde Edwards-Helaire yet again, so I'm playing Darrell Williams. But Nick, we saw Derek Gore, Frank Gore's great-grandson, had a big game last week. Is he going to be involved again? To me, I think that was one of those plays where it's just a flash in the pan, where it happens once, now everyone's going to dick ride Derek Gore, think Derek Gore's going to do something, and then this week, he's fucking taking a nap in your lineup. I would not be playing Derek Gore. I do like Darrell Williams a lot in this matchup up against the Cheeseheads. For the Packers, A.J. Dillon is one of those running backs that is very talented. We saw him get a decent amount of usage up against the Arizona Cardinals, but this will be a game that I don't believe the Packers are going to be leading at a lot of points in this game. I don't expect the Green Bay Packers to lay the smackdown on the Kansas City Chiefs, where if Aaron Rodgers was under center, that may be the case because the Chiefs defense is just that bad. So, if that was the case, and they're up in the game, then they're going to say, hey, Aaron Jones, sit your ass down, it's A.J. Dillon time, and A.J. Dillon pounds out the defense. But that's not going to be the case in this game, because I do not believe that the Packers will be in a situation where they're up by so much that it becomes A.J. Dillon time. I think A.J. Dillon will still get touches in this game, but I do not expect him to be a start-worthy running back. Next up, we move to the Arizona Cardinals at the San Francisco 49ers. In this game, I like both of the running backs for the Arizona Cardinals. They are going to be without Kyler Murray in this game, so I do think they're going to also look to run the ball a decent amount up against the San Francisco 49ers. That may be a successful game plan. The dump-offs to Chase Edmonds will help them out a ton, and every single time they get close to the 5-yard line, they just throw James Conner into the game, and he just magically scores every single fucking game, so you got to be playing James Conner. I think Chase Edmonds has some decent upside as well. For the 49ers, Elijah Mitchell's a guy you need to be throwing in your lineup game in and game out. Jeff Wilson Jr. appears to be returning in this game. They also have JaMycal Hasty, and while last year and while at the beginning of this year, this backfield was as foggy as it gets, it was like the Baltimore backfield is what I would compare it to, where every single week you would think, oh, it's clearly Trey Sermon, and then out of nowhere it's Elijah Mitchell, or out of nowhere it's Kyle Juszczyk, or out of nowhere Trey Lance is out there and he's running his way on into the end zone. But at this point in the season, it seems like the 49ers have really, well, they do use the hot hand approach, and it seems like Elijah Mitchell clearly has that hot hand and will continue to be getting tons of work, so I like him this week up against the J.J. Wattless Arizona Cardinals defense. JaMycal Hasty as well as Jeff Wilson Jr., they will be sits on my roster this week. Next up, we got the LA Titans at the LA Rams. In this one, I like Darrell Henderson. The LA Rams team is they just push it into overdrive every single game. Darrell Henderson is so key in this offense. Cooper Kupp might score 4 fucking touchdowns in this game, and I think Darrell Henderson could still score 2. That's just a testament to how good the LA Rams offense is. I expect Matthew Stafford to absolutely slay the Tennessee Titans, and I expect Darrell Henderson to see a very high workload in this matchup. For the Titans, they got my boy AP going psycho, as well as Jeremy McNichols. Now, I think this is going to be an interesting game. It's a feeler out game, right? You say, hey, how many touches is Adrian Peterson going to have? How many snaps is he going to have versus Jeremy McNichols? I believe that this situation is going to go like this. I believe that Adrian Peterson is going to be seeing a lot of the rushing opportunity. And then on third down, we're to see Jeremy McNichols, because this season, Jeremy McNichols has a decent amount of receptions, a decent amount of receiving yards, not too many rushing opportunities for him. Adrian Peterson was pretty successful at running the football last year for the Detroit Lions, about as successful as you can get for a running back that is on the Detroit Lions. So I expect Adrian Peterson to lead the team in rushes, rushing attempts, rushing yards, but I do expect Jeremy McNichols to be seeing more dump-offs leading in the receiving yards. So that's all cool. But up against the LA Rams, I'd rather just sit them down. I'd rather just, you know what, feel it out this game, and then maybe next week I throw out Adrian Peterson or I throw out Jeremy McNichols as the guy. Gun to the head, who is more fantasy valuable in this matchup? I would say Adrian Peterson. None of these guys are going to produce like Derrick Henry because neither of these guys are Derrick Henry. Pretty simple. It's not going to be a workhorse scenario for either of these guys. I think if you had to start one, I'd go with AP. This is a very confusing topic that we'll see fold out on Sunday, so I can be very confident going forward. Adrian Peterson, Jerry McNichols, they'll be listed as sits, and Darrell Henderson, obviously every single week, that guy is a start. And final game here, we got the Chicago Bears at the Pittsburgh Steelers. David Montgomery still nowhere to be found, which means it's Khalil Herbert the pervert season. But Nick, that's Justin Herbert's nickname. Well, for now, we can call Khalil Herbert the pervert as well. His real nickname, I believe, is Juice Herbert. Shout out to O.J. Simpson. That is always a sick nickname when your nickname is Juice. I don't love Herbert in this matchup because the Steelers' defense is just so strong up against the run. We saw them shut down Mr. 9-inch Nicholas Chubb last week, but I do think there is entirely a chance that Khalil Herbert, since he's just been so hot, so on fire, that he plays well in this game, but he's not a guy that I'd be looking at as a top 12 running back. Najee Harris, that's a guy you play in every single game. The Bears defense is so bad. So bad. And the offense finally started to look good because Matt Nagy wasn't there. Matt Nagy had COVID, so he couldn't coach. It seems like maybe the Bears need to fucking inject this guy with COVID every single week so Matt Nagy can't be there to fuck everything up. So thank you guys all so much for watching. If you did end up enjoying, please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below as well as hitting that like button. I would appreciate it a ton. I love you guys all so much. I hope you have a great rest of your guys' day. And as always, goodbye.